Hi everyone, I'm Jake Bates, Workforce Management Consultant here at ShopWorks. Welcome again to another edition to the Workforce Management Podcast. I'm joined by Ian, one of our co-founders. Hi Ian.
Hi Jake.
So, interesting topic this one. I think it's something I've definitely been hearing a lot more about, labour demand forecasting, and I think it's just kind of worth noting. I think in the current climate, everyone's short-staffed. It seems to be trying to get the most out of your workforce is quite a key kind of objective for many employers. So I think for today, it'd be good to understand, firstly, what is it, how can it help, and what goes into making an effective demand curve. First question, I think, what is a labour demand forecast?
Okay, so it's a two-stage process, which we'll cover in a second, and the idea is that you work out exactly how many staff you need per role, per period of time, normally like half hour or an hour. Okay. Yeah. And the two stages are you need to forecast what factors are going to affect your staffing level. So imagine you're selling coffees. It's how many coffees you're going to sell, it's number of items. In a restaurant, it might be number of covers. It might be number of, it might be number of bookings. There are a variety of factors. So the first stage is work out those, get a forecast for those, and that forecast needs to match the sort of time periods you're looking to match the staffing for. So let's say you're looking for an hourly demand curve. Yeah. You need to forecast how many coffees you're going to sell between 9 and 10. Okay. That's the first stage. The second stage is once you know how many of something you're going to sell, or how many of tasks you need doing, you then need to work out how many staff you're going to need, and that's the second stage of the process.
Okay, and what's the advantages? Why do I need a labour demand optimised forecast?
Okay, so it's about the phrase in the sort of workforce management industry is right people, right place, right time. But what they're really saying is you need to have enough staff to meet customer demand. That's why it's called demand forecasting. Okay. And labour demand. So how many staff do you need to keep your customers happy? Yeah. And if you don't keep your customers happy, they either turn around and walk out the door, okay, or they're getting a bad experience and they don't come back. So if we took the coffee shop example, we've all experienced that. You get off a train, the train's just dropped 100 people by the coffee shop. Yeah. Okay, there's a queue out the door. They haven't got enough staff in. You go and join the next queue in the next coffee shop. Yeah. Okay, so they've lost business. If you took a restaurant as an example, they've got a more complex situation. You'll see where they don't want to book everybody at 7 o'clock because they can't. They need to spread the demand over a period of time. Okay, so that the chefs have got time to cook it, the waiters and waitresses have got time to deliver it, and and people got time to give service. So that's the idea.
So just to confirm, a labour demand curve is in essence telling me how many members of staff I'm going to need, based on forecast how many sales we anticipate to make.
Yes, it could be sales, but it could be any other factor. So you might need a demand curve for unloading lorries, or for picking stuff off a shelf in the supermarket and putting it in bags to deliver. Okay. So it's a forecast of the factor that impacts the staffing. Okay. And the other sort of thing, just to add to that, Jake, is the curve needs to be by role. So go back to the restaurant example. How many chefs? How many washer-uppers? How many sous chefs? How many front of house? How many bar staff do you need to meet that level of demand?
And I'm assuming that it's not a case of just swapping apples and pears. It's a case of there's different factors that kind of go into it. I may be a forklift driver who needs to have a forklift certification in order to fill that role. So there's different factors that come into it.
Yeah, that tends. Yes. So sometimes it's by role. Okay. Yeah. So the role would be forklift driver, and then it might be the scheduling tool that works out whether you're qualified to be the right. Okay. So sometimes that might be the scheduling tool that deals with that. But you're right. It's how many people per role do you need to do?
And just can talk me through an example, different organisations that will kind of use this. Is this particularly for one industry? Is this for any industry?
So they tend to be, hourly, flexible employees with non-fixed contracts. Okay. Yeah. And the reason those contracts exist in the first place is because the company or the organisation, it has a variable sort of demand level. So if you have something where it was always the same level of demand, okay, then you don't need to forecast it. So I'm just trying to think of it. So some factories we come across that they always, they always run the same routine. They don't change the number of staff they have day to day. Okay, they're in fixed shift patterns.
Yeah.
They don't need to forecast anything. They just turn up and do their work. Where you need labour demand forecasting is the coffee shop's a great example. They're busy around breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they're busy when trains come in the train station one, and they need to forecast that. Other good examples include sort of hospitals.
Yeah.
Okay, so A&E. When are people coming in? Call centres. When are the calls going to come in?
Yeah.
Sporting venues. The people are doing sort of real time forecasts to work out. When people are going to come to the bar. What time are they going to turn up, depending on the fixture. Lots of sort of things where there's a variable element to the demand.
And kind of on that point, say, how often would it be valuable to me to know my demand? Is this something I do on a yearly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis?
You tend to see that people do it when they need to create a so labour demand forecasting tends to be when you need to create a schedule. Okay. So if you want to build a rota for the week after next, you need to know what your forecast is for the week after next. Okay. Then some organisations do it in real time on the day, so they're flexible enough to adjust. So if you think about it, you built the rota 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
You had 7 staff that were coming in that day. Okay. And then as the day progresses, you ought to be able to reforecast against your original forecast to see if you need more or less staff. So you could either send some home, adjust between departments, and so it's becoming more real time, and AI is allowing that more real time element of it.
I'm thinking supermarket stacking shelves, and then all of a sudden a delivery pops up, which no one knew that was going to turn up.
Yeah, and what you'll find with that is with the supermarket as a particular case, so they will have a demand forecast 2 weeks in advance or 3 weeks in advance when they're scheduling the staff. Okay, and then they'll forecast intraday, or the good ones will, intraday, on what those individual tasks. So the difference between a shift, which is, say, an 8-hour working pattern, and tasks, which might be 2 hours on checkout, 2 hours unloading a lorry, an hour picking for deliveries.
Yeah.
They might forecast that with intraday.
And before we kind of just quickly go through how we create a labour demand curve, I suppose, what's the benefits of knowing I've got the right amount of staff? What would be the outcome of that?
So if you had the same staff budget, and you use a proper AI, latest state-of-the-art AI-powered demand forecasting and then scheduling, you should increase your revenue because you will have the staff there when the customers need the service.
Yeah.
They will spend more, they won't walk out the door, and your revenue will go up. So in simple terms, labour demand forecasting is about generating the maximum revenue for the same staff costs.
Fab. Okay. How do we build a labour demand forecast?
Okay, fine. So again, we do it in two stages. So the first bit is we need to work out what the sales are. Okay, let's go for the sales rather than some of the other sort of dynamics. And so you're going to need a load of historic data.
Yeah.
Okay, and that might be historic sales data in this case. Weather forecasts might be important. Traffic and event forecasts. If you're a pub and you show the football, you want to know whether there's Champions League night on. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you need a tool to do it. So there are lots of software forecasting tools out there. Some companies use spreadsheets. One of the sort of challenges is that it needs to be scalable. So if you think about it, if you need to do a forecast for 100 shops and you've got 3 departments per shop, okay, you're doing 30 forecasts each week, and each one of those needs multiple data points. So doing it on a spreadsheet, you're going to have 4 full-time people just doing that. So you need a tool to do it. So most people, and a lot of them are AI powered now, the best ones.
And do I have to have a workforce management to work alongside it?
In theory, no. What happens is that once you've used these tools to create the labour demand forecast, it outputs a demand curve, which we've talked about, which is basically number of people per role per hour.
Yeah.
Okay. So it might be 3 baristas at 9 till 10. Once you've got that demand curve, a workforce management tool normally has a place to display that and measure against it, and it's designed to take that via API, and it then has a way of scheduling that staff. So you could just export it. You could create it in a spreadsheet, put it into a spreadsheet, and then schedule your staff on that.
Yeah.
We would argue that that's probably not very efficient or very slick. And obviously the best systems, these are automated end-to-end processes.
And that was going to be on my final point, accuracy. I'm assuming there's someone doing it by manually with paper. I did this on Black Friday last year. Naturally there has to be some improvement on the accuracy levels.
Yeah, if you look at, say, a few years ago, where people were just maybe doing it with spreadsheets, the traditional model was exactly that. We're 3% up year on year. I had this number of people this time last year, so I'm going to add 3% to the revenue forecast, do a quick calculation of how many staff I need. I might add one more person on. If you get a proper software tool to do it, and bearing in mind you might have to do that for 100 stores with 3 departments a store, okay?
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, and they're all going to use the same calculation, aren't they? You're going to end up making that simple and easy to use, and therefore it's not very sophisticated. So the accuracy of a modern AI-powered system is way, way above the sort of using a spreadsheet.
Great.
And it shows in the revenue.
I think we'll wrap it up there. I know there's, from an AI perspective in general, listeners can go, there's a few more podcasts that kind of cover that. We'll put the link at the bottom as well. But I think really good to have you on. Really good, interesting topic. Thanks for speaking with me.
Thanks, Jake.
Cheers.